Thank you so much for this kind introduction. And before I come on to my talk, I would also like to thank the organizers of this meeting very much. So I'm very honored, together with Brian Tomlinson and Peter Landsberg, the three of us were invited to speak also last year. So I don't know, I guess we must have done something okay since I don't know. Anyway, we're very honored to come here again, that's for sure. So I will now talk about lipoprotein little a. And the reason why it's called lipoprotein little a, it's this parenthesis. So you can't call it lipoprotein A or ApoA because that's something else. So it's lipoprotein little a. And now something about some fundamentals, just simple, what is it about? So here's a picture of an LDL particle with an ApoB, the big protein on top of it. And then I wouldn't say it's not the same, but there is an LDL-like particle in lipoprotein little a shown on this side. And it has this extra apoprotein on top of it. It's called apolipoprotein little a that has these crinkle structures. It's sort of like, these are crinkles. They are like a Danish pastry. That's why they got the name actually. And they have these many, many different ones, and then it's attached to ApoB here. Particularly this one, crinkle 4 type 2, you can have from 2 to more than 40 copies. So if you have 40 copies, the protein is huge. It's going all the way over here. So what was found out quite a while ago by 2 American groups was that apolipoprotein little a shown below has homology with plasminogen that we know is extremely important in fibrinolysis. So if you see fibrinogen on top, it has crinkles 1, 2, 3, they're the red ones, and crinkle 4 and crinkle 5 and a protease domain. But in ApoA, it doesn't have the red ones. It only has the blue ones, but the blue ones are found in many, many different versions from number 1 up to number 10. And as I told you, crinkle 4 subtype 2 you can have from maybe 1 or to more than 40. It has the protease domain also, but the protease domain is inactive here. And also have a crinkle 10. This is the distribution in the Danish population. I can tell you it's very, very similar here in Vietnam. It's a skewed distribution with a tail toward very high levels. So the red one up here, this is the top 20% of the population, both in men and women. These are the ones at the highest risk. And this crinkle number, it's a bit strange, right? The crinkle 4 type 2, if you have low numbers, then you have high concentrations. If you have high numbers, you have low concentration. That's because when you have the very high numbers, the protein gets stuck in the liver, is never synthesized. It's 80 to 90% genetically determined. So just taking an LP-little test is actually a genetic test. Here's some data from Copenhagen, where you can see that as a function of age on the x-axis, what is the plasma levels? And you can actually see that it increases slightly with age, probably because of reduced kidney function. And in women after age 50, around metamorphs, it actually increases more than in men. So you can argue that women have a bigger risk from LP-little than men. In different ethnicities, that's the other thing that really makes a big difference. What I show here is, it's all like the median level here, and then up here is the interquartile range, and here down below is the concentrations in both milligram per liter and nanomoles per liter. You can see whites, Chinese, Japanese, and here in Vietnam, Southeast Asia, have approximately the same concentrations. Then the next one, the South Asians, so Indian, Pakistani, Sri Lanka, they have higher levels than we have and than you have here. And Arabs higher and Hispanics in Latin America have higher, but the ones that really have high levels are black people from Africa. They have 4 times the levels of in Vietnam and in Europe. Very importantly, LP-little is a causal risk factor for cardiovascular disease in all ethnicities. There's quite a lot of evidence for that now. So blacks really have much higher risk than others. Here's just some data to show that's from the UK Biobank. It's from the recent Florian Kronberg, 4th author, European Atherosclerosis Society consensus statement coming out in 2022, showing over on the one side on the y-axis hazard ratio for coronary heart disease with high Lp(a), you can see the higher the Lp(a), the higher the risk. And over here, and the red one is actually for blacks. It's just, it has a wider confidence because there's less black living in the UK than whites. That's the only difference, but it's the same association. And so Lp(a) is very mysterious. It developed twice in evolution. So it's found in the European hedgehog, and then it's found in a completely different way. It's similar to it, but it's actually different in monkeys, apes, some monkeys, some apes, and in humans. That's the same version. And so how I would argue is that in evolution, if something developed twice in evolution, there's no other animals that have Lp(a). It must do something good for survival. So in young age, you probably live longer. In modern time, maybe you get disease at old age. And what I can think about is young age, maybe it could stop bleeding because interfering with fibrinolysis, and thereby at childbirth, there's a bigger chance that mother and child will survive. Historical development. So what I've done here on the x-axis this year, I just did a Scopus search and looked at, put in lipoprotein(a), what's in there of publications. And it was discovered by Kåre Berg in Norway. He's a geneticist in 1964. And after that, there were very little interest until two American groups, Lorne and Scano, in a roughly 1986, they cloned the gene and found this peculiarities that ApoA has similarity with plasminogen. Then the increase went way up, and then came some American studies from the Women's Health Study that said, oh, Lp(a) is not important, and it turned out it's just because they made a really, really bad assay and they used frozen samples. So later on, now they published on it again that this was flawed. But see what a group from Boston can do. It really made the interest in Lp(a) go way down. And only here in 2009, you can say Lp(a) was resurrected by genetics. There were genetic studies. We had some. There was also emergent risk factor collaboration and Robert Clark from the UK. And then the interest went way up now. Now we have 3 different phase 3 trials ongoing. One called the Horizon, one called Ocean-A, and one called the Acclaim Lp(a) study. So what is the genetic evidence? What was it that made this difference? So really, people started believing in it again. And here I just make a summary from our studies in Copenhagen. There's other studies, but we have done a lot of different studies, have a lot of statistical power. So what you can see is that if you have genetically high Lp(a), then the risk of atherosclerotic stenosis, and I'm actually not talking about atherosclerosis, I'm talking about atherosclerotic stenosis up here. It's 1.5 to 5-fold higher with the higher and higher levels. And then myocardial infarction is 1.5 to 3-fold higher. And for aortic stenosis, it's 1.5 to 3-fold higher. So that's interesting. It's not only atherosclerotic stenosis, but it's also aortic valve stenosis. Then there's heart failure, 1.2 to 1.7-fold, ischemic stroke, 1.6-fold, and all-cause mortality, 1.2-fold. So that's 20% higher risk of dying if you have the very highest Lp(a). So for dying, that's a very high risk. And here I put in how many people are actually affected, and you can see for atherosclerotic stenosis, myocardial infarction, heart failure, and aortic stenosis, it's 1 in 3, every third person. So just in here, there's a lot of us that have high Lp(a) that have these risks. Heart failure, also 1/3, ischemic stroke, and all-cause mortality, we could only find it for 5%. In, for example, UK Biobank, the results are quite similar. What is the mechanism? Well, I don't know, here I put a coronary artery with atherosclerosis, and I used to think, I'm sure like many other people think, thought it would cause atherosclerosis through cholesterol deposition, just like LDL. But I don't think that anymore because of this association also with aortic valve stenosis. It must be some different mechanism. And therefore, for me, the most likely thing is to think about that it has homology with fibrinogen or plasminogen, and thereby influence fibrinolysis. So what I would think is logical is that if you get a plaque rupture here, where you already have atherosclerosis, then it's more likely you'll have a big thrombus because it could inhibit fibrinolysis. And that could lead to, as shown up here, wound healing via thrombosis through fibrinolysis inhibition. And if, so like downstream of some stenosis, you can get even more stenosis like you could at the aortic valve stenosis. What does guidelines say? Well, we were the first one, European Atherosclerosis Society, put out this consensus statement in 2010, and you can see I was privileged to be first author on it. And then later came this one, the 2019 ESC/EAS guidelines for dyslipidemia. For the first time, say that we should measure Lp(a) once in everybody. We said we should measure it at high risk initially. And then came this latest guidelines or consensus statement, also from European Atherosclerosis Society, Florian Kronberg, first author, that said, let's do it both in everybody and of course also in anybody with high risk. And so like having a summary of the time scale with Kohlberg discovery in 1963, then we have the Lp(a) clone, and then we started here in the European Atherosclerosis Society in 2010 to say let's screen high risk. And this was followed by many, many other guidelines worldwide. And then the EAS and ESC together in 2019 said let's screen it everybody. And now this is also copied in a number of other countries. So there's a lot of guidelines that say this. When should you measure Lp(a) in your patients? Well, I think the Canadian guidelines, they get it really right. They say the first lipid profile, if you decide to do a lipid profile, just measure Lp(a) once so you know about this genetic risk. If you already had previous lives lipid profiles, just do it on the next profile. And then I think there's a lot of discussion about should we measure it in nanomoles per liter or milligram per liter. For me, it doesn't matter. Both assays are fine. So as put in red, if you have very high levels of Lp(a), it's very high irrespective of the assay. And if it's very low with both. And in between it's also the same. So just measure it and look at it. That's all you need to do. We have a conversion factor in European Heart Journal published if somebody get into the details, but I don't think that's necessary. The treatment, well, we don't have any drugs available right now that reduce Lp(a). So what you do want to do when you find a patient with very high concentration, you say, now you are a person, my patient, that have very high cardiovascular risk. So what can you do then? And patients tend to be persuaded when they have genetic risk is that healthy lifestyle. Discuss more about them, about getting your exercise, not being obese, not smoking, and have a heart-healthy diet. And then what we as doctors should do, we should on top of that think about, can we give some extra medication to bring down other risk factors? Most importantly, treat LDL cholesterol as much as possible. Statins, ezetimibe, PCSK9 inhibitors. But also if there's diabetes, treat it aggressively. If there's hypertension, treat it aggressively. And so these are the pipeline drugs. So it's big enthusiasm in the field of Lp(a). So there's 5 different drugs in development now. In green, shown one called an ASO, antisense oligonucleotide. There's 3 drugs called in siRNAs, and there's one small molecule developed by Eli Lilly. You can see that the ASO can reduce it to 80%. These siRNA can all bring it up to 98%, so we can basically eliminate Lp(a). And this small molecule, for now it only shows 65%, but maybe it can reduce it more. As you also can see that phase 3 results are expected for the first trial here in 25-26, the next one in 27-28, and the third one in 2029. But I think these 2 other drugs will probably also start phase 3 trials at some stage. So my concluding remarks, I think maybe it's early in Vietnam, but long-term measure Lp(a) in your patients and stay tuned. There'll be lots of trials coming along. Thank you so much for your attention.